So welcome everyone. My name's Sue Gyford and I'm here with Beth Dobbin, who I'm sure will be known to many of you. She is a sprinter, a 200 metre specialist in particular. After many years of being an athlete, she really burst onto probably both the national and international scenes in 2018 when she beat the Scottish 200 metre record 4 times over. She since then has been to the European Champs in Berlin and the World Champs in Doha. She's the current 200 metre Scottish record holder with a time of 22:50, which she ran at the Anniversary Games in London last year. Beth, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to look to talk today. There's so much to talk about in your career, but we're going to try and focus particularly on the coaching side of things, the relationship that you've had with coaches over the years, how that's helped you, what might be useful for coaches to know when working with athletes. And I think we'll do it by talking probably chronologically through your career. And you started out, I think, at Doncaster as a young athlete. Do you want to just give us a bit of an introduction as to how you first found athletics, how you first started running and training, and what those early experiences were like and what made you stick with it?
Yeah, so I'm from a sporty family. My dad used to play football, and growing up he was just really active around the house, so he might do circuits, we'd go for runs together on the weekend, and that kind of got me in through the cross-country route. And then I kind of begged him to take me to the athletics club, and he did. And it was just a case of something that I really enjoyed. I loved all PE at school. And then there I got put in the sprints group. And yeah, it was just something that I enjoyed. I met friends there, and it was more just about the enjoyment of it and keeping fit really when I first began it.
And what sort of age were you when you first went along to the athletics club?
So I was 12 when I first went. I had done like cross countries before that, but it was 12 when I joined the athletics club.
And was it something that you were kind of thinking about the future and thinking about developing, or was it just to kind of, well, it's Tuesday, this is what I do on a Tuesday and it's fun?
I think it was a bit of both. Like, we all grew up watching the Olympics on the TV, and I remember watching Kelly Holmes, and I did watch that and think, oh my God, I would love to do that. But I just never thought it would happen. You kind of watch something on the TV and it's on the TV, it doesn't feel real. And when I did it, it was just something I enjoyed, something that I was relatively good at, but never amazing. But yeah, it was more for the enjoyment.
And were you kind of aware of being coached at that point? Were your coaches just sort of people who were there keeping order and you did what they said, or were you aware of them kind of trying to develop your technique and your speed?
I think when I started, I was really appreciative of my coach because at the time he was seen as kind of one of the best at the club, and his group was really hard to get into. So when I first joined the club, I wasn't put in his group straight away, and after maybe about a year I then moved to his group, and it was full of older athletes, so I think that's where I always appreciated coaching from, because I just saw it as really prestigious to be in his group.
And that was John Blackshaw, I think, at Doncaster you were with at that point. Was there a point then that you suddenly started taking it a bit more seriously when you moved into his training group and you had a bit more concentration or dedication, or was it still at that stage just enjoyment?
I think I did take it really seriously, and from what my mum reminds me, she does say that kind of she saw that I worked really hard, and a lot of the parents would say, oh, I want my child to train with Beth because we know she works really hard and she'll push them along. So I was always a hard worker, but yeah, I think that's just kind of in my nature, and something my dad has definitely taught me in particular. Going for those runs with him that I used to go, he would say, I can't stop till we reach the gates and things like that. So I have learned the hard work ethic, definitely.
And were there particular things you think, particular approaches that John had that really suited you, that worked well with you?
Yeah, I think he gave a lot of commitment and a lot of effort, and then because when you see someone give you so much commitment, it makes you then want to give it back, to kind of not only do it for yourself but do it for them as well. So because he gave up his time, he's a volunteer coach like most people are up and down the country, it then made me think, yeah, I've got to work hard for him as well.
And by the sound of it, he was working with athletes of quite a spread of ages, but he still managed to focus enough on you to make you feel you were getting that development that you needed to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when I first joined the group, it was very general. And then as I got older, it definitely got more specific, and he would sit down with me, we'd write my plans about, oh, when we go to this competition, we want to be running this. So you did feel like you were getting a lot of like attention. And again, that reinforces why you want to do well in it.
And presumably as well, you were supported by a wider network. It's never just athlete and coach. Who else was around you kind of encouraging you and making you want to keep coming back?
I'd say my mum and dad, definitely. They would, support me going to competitions. They would most of the time come and watch me. And just that support and encouragement, even though at the time I wasn't winning all the races. In fact, I lost a lot more than I won when I was younger. It was just that encouragement that they were there watching me. And I never felt like they were pushing me to do it. It was always that I wanted to do it. And they were just supporting me while I was doing it.
And you had an additional challenge during your teens in that you developed epilepsy and you were really quite unwell for a long time. And I think even after your condition stabilised, you were taking medication that probably in retrospect affected your speed. That must have been really challenging at any age, but particularly in your teens. How did that affect? Presumably you had to stop completely, did you, for a while?
Yeah, so I had a few months out of just not training altogether. And then when I did start back, I mean, I was never the fastest anyway, but I was like really, really down on those times. And then it kind of just shifted from doing it for enjoyment and to see my friends, because I just wasn't doing well in it at all. And I do remember there were tears. I used to cry to my mum, and she did say that it is the medication that's kind of changed things. And I knew that when I came off my medication, that would be a lot different. And then fortunately, I think I was 17 when I came off my medication, and then the times started to drop down. It still wasn't setting the world alight, but it was definitely better than what I'd been running previously.
And was there a change in your relationship with John and the way that worked? Or did you just carry on as before and you were just a bit more frustrated that you weren't getting the results? Did he kind of change the way he coached you?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when I first came back, it was a case of having to be careful, because obviously I'd been through something really major and I was really fatigued. I was on medication that meant I was really fatigued. So he was really good with that. And then as I came off my medication, it was then the case of, oh, you know what, this girl could actually do something. And then he sat down with me individually and we went through everything in detail.
Was there a point where you'd come off your medication? Was there a particular run when you went out and said, oh yeah, actually I am much faster now?
Yeah, it was so when I was on my medication, I was running like 27 seconds, and I was like 16, 17. So there's so many people up and down the country that can do that. And then I came off my medication and I started running 25 seconds. And at the time, that was like so good for me. And then I ended that season with a 24:9 run. And it meant so much, because I'd gone from running like 26, 27 seconds to then, having my first 25-second run after I came off my medication, and then just chipping away at it.
Great. And it was presumably not long after that you then had the big transition that is difficult for a lot of athletes, which is going away to university. And you went off to Loughborough, I believe, to do psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And that presumably means everything changes.
Yeah, it was a big change, but I had my heart set on Loughborough just because it was a sporting university. And I remember saying to my mum, if I don't get the grades for Loughborough, I'm just going to resit till I do. So I really had my heart set on going to Loughborough.
And was that when you switched and started working with Leon Baptiste?
Yeah, so I contacted him before I moved to Loughborough, because I wanted to get everything sorted. Initially, I was quite nervous because I knew he was a new coach. It was his first year coaching, and I knew he was an athlete. And because my coach, John, at the time when he coached me, he was like a majority of club coaches, an old man, very experienced, been coaching for like 30 years. That was a big change to go from that to then someone who has never coached before in his life, and I did feel quite nervous about it. But fortunately, it has really paid off.
And did you feel like, do you think when you first started working together, could you feel that it was a different style of coaching or a different kind of relationship that you had?
Completely different. It was so surreal, because I'd gone from training like 2 or 3 times a week and just doing 300s and loads of long stuff, and maybe do a bit of quicker stuff in the summer. And then with Leon, we were doing quick stuff all year round, and he wanted to do 20-meter runs, and I'm thinking, why am I doing 20-meter runs? Like, I'm used to running for 300 meters. So it was such a difference, and I was not buying it at all for the first few months, because I was just such a workhorse. It was just so different. And then after I'd ran indoors and I'd ran a PB, so I'd gone from 24.9 to 24.6, I did think, oh, maybe he does know a bit what he's on about. I'll start listening now.
And I get that's sort of on the track, off the track. There's so many things as well that change when you go to university. Suddenly there's this social life all around you. I guess maybe at Loughborough there's a higher proportion of people who are concentrating on sport. It's maybe a little bit easier. But what were the big things that kind of came in and were the big distractions for you?
So I see that a lot now as being a senior member of the group. A lot of new athletes come to Loughborough, and it is that lifestyle, that party university lifestyle, that I think does affect maybe the first couple of years at uni. But I feel really, really fortunate, and my parents aren't going to thank me for telling everyone this, but they used to let me go out before I was legally allowed. So between the ages of 16 and 18, I did go out regularly, and I kind of got it out of my system there. So I never drank alcohol. That was something that I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to kind of ruin my athletics that way. But I did go out quite a lot. And I think then when I moved to Loughborough, that I'd kind of got that out of my system, and the temptations were there. So starting at Loughborough, when most people go to university and they then kind of not go off the rails, but they do go out a lot they would normally, and it does kind of impact their athletics. I'd already had that kind of when I was enough to get away with it, so I'm not advocating that to anyone, but that is what I did. And then when I moved to Loughborough, it wasn't really something I wanted to do. I'd already done it and I was bored of it, so I kind of was then quite professional, and kind of it was all focused on my training.
So the main transition that you had to go through at that point really was the transition to the new coach rather than the kind of lifestyle transitions.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of because John was the only coach that I'd really had for a long period of time. Then moving to someone else when you don't know them, and I'd really trusted John. It was difficult. It was after I'd had that kind of personal best indoors that I thought, right, I'll give him a chance.
Right. And how did you see athletics in your life at that point? Was it a potential career, or was it, you're kind of in that in-between stage where you'd obviously really committed to it? You'd gone to Loughborough, you've asked Leon to take you on. Was this the point where you started thinking, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to give it everything?
I would definitely put that down to Leon. So it wasn't something that I thought would be a career, but it was something that I thought that I wanted to be really, really dedicated to. And I would put that down to Leon, because when I joined his group, he was so professional in terms of how he coached us. So we got like weekly programs, we were working with massage therapists that were part of the group, and that was just completely unknown territory to me. Like, I just used to rock up training like most club athletes do and just decide what we're doing on that night, and coach will have an idea, and you kind of have a vague idea, but getting a program once a week and going a bit more professional, it then just makes you act a bit more professional. So it was, I think, learning from Leon how professional he was, because obviously he was a professional athlete at the time. He kind of treated the whole group like professional athletes, and I think that's where my professional athlete kind of mentality came from.
Great. And was there an element as well with Leon of him being more, you're talking about the kind of the technical stuff and the schedules and the training on the track, was he also kind of looking at the more of the psychology and your attitude towards your training as well at this point? Was that also something that was new?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I learned most when I first joined Leon is how much a coach is so much more a coach. Like the kind of the training program side I have to worry about was all him, but he taught me so much about the lifestyle side of things. So things like getting regular treatment, stretching after a session, you know, warming up properly, all those things, nutrition and things like that. He would just kind of drip in when I first joined him, and that is kind of still things that I follow to this day. And that was, you know, 8 years ago. Still, he would say to me, right, massage on this day, this is the best way to get it to fit in with the training program. And still 8 years on, I'm still doing the same thing. So I think that's what the thing it's taught me, that, you know, a coach, it does so much more. It's a whole package, because you train for 3-4 hours a day, and then there's 20 odd hours of the day that you still are an athlete, and it's about what you do in those hours of the day.
Things started to change quite quickly for you, particularly around the 2018 season, and you started suddenly turning heads. You ran 2 Scottish records in a row at the British Champs that year and went on to Berlin. Was that challenging, or was it just exciting when it happened? I think I've seen you saying that you were particularly nervous before the British Champs.
Yeah, I was very, very nervous before the British Champs. I think at the British Champs, I felt like there was a lot of pressure, even though no one else did, but I just had put a lot of pressure on myself. So it was challenging, but at the same time, I did love every minute of it. It was so enjoyable. And I think the challenges then came later in 2019, when I had my first experience of injury. I got it in my head that, you know, I'd got to where I have done through a lot of hard work and dedication, and, you know, working really, really hard, not missing training sessions and things like that. And then when I missed months through injury in 2019, it really hit me hard, because I thought, you know, the one thing that I do is work hard, and I can't do that because I'm not able to train through injury. So that was kind of where I struggled with it. But then I still managed to have, it wasn't the best season I've had, but I did still manage to run a PB in 2019. So I think that did give me confidence that, you know, I probably am better than I give myself credit for.
And what was Leon saying to you through that period first of all, when you suddenly started to really improve and qualified for Berlin? Was there an element of him trying to keep you on an equilibrium and not get overexcited by it? Did he have to was there part of that in your relationship then at that point?
Yeah, definitely. I think I noticed that at Loughborough International in 2018, when I ran a PB, I ran 23.1, and I was like bouncing off the walls. I was so buzzing, and he was pleased, but he was like, no, calm down, because it's May, and, you know, there's a lot more to come. And I thought, I ran 23.1, there's not that much more to come, surely. And then when I went to my UK Women's League a couple of weeks later, and I'd ran 22.8 and broken the Scottish record, and that he was the first person I called, and that phone call was so surreal, because I wasn't 100% sure what I was saying was right, because when something like that happens, you think, has that actually happened? And he was just so shocked, because he's coached me for 8 years, and he's watched me trying to break 24 seconds, and I remember when I ran 23.9, and we were elated then. So to them have the kind of same emotions, but for a second quicker, it just feels so surreal. And it's definitely something I didn't think would happen, and I don't think he thought would happen. And I often do say, we spoke about the 2018 season and what I would like to achieve, and he said, oh, what do you want to run? And I did say I wanted to run 22.9, and I felt so embarrassed that I'd said it, and I think he laughed at me, and we were both laughing, because we thought, well, there's no way that I'm going to run that. And then, yeah, I've proved myself wrong. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
So he's obviously had to adapt a lot as well in terms of his expectations and trying to kind of counterbalance your excitement. And so then you talk about 2019, and you had a neck injury that you'd got in the gym. What was he then saying to you when you had to stop training and recuperate? How did he help you at that point?
It was sort of unknown territory for both of us, because since I've joined him, it's been really has been quite plain sailing. I mean, there've been a few issues, but each year, you know, I work really hard and training goes well, and then I kind of reap the rewards. Like you said, 2018 was a great year, but I have had great years before that, just not been running that quick. So I have PB'd most years, so we have had a lot of success. But then this was just kind of totally different for both of us, and I was really quite upset about it, and he was a lot more calm and kind of wrote a plan and tried to help me to try and help me calm down, to show that it can be done. It's just going to be a bit different to normal. So he was helping me in that respect, to just kind of keep me calm and not panic too much. But I still think I did panic quite a lot. But yeah, it was just a case of trying to keep calm and thinking outside the box about how to do it when you've missed so much training.
And I know Doha, obviously a massive event for you that year. You'd come out of injury. Because you hadn't been to the kind of junior internationals, I guess, did you also feel particularly nervous because you hadn't had that international experience coming up through the ranks? Was that a challenging event for you?
Yeah, definitely. I do look back at Doha, and it is a shame because I don't feel like I fully enjoyed it. I think I felt that I've spent the whole time like worrying, feeling nervous, and I think that was just partly because I'd missed so much training. I know how much training I'd missed, so my confidence wasn't there. And even though I'd ran a PB that year, and I kind of deep down I knew I wasn't in that kind of shape. I knew that I'd had a good race, and probably I was a few tenths slower than that. So it was really difficult, and I think I found it particularly hard because Leon wasn't out there with me, and I've been lucky enough for most competitions he has been there. And it was, I remember saying to Stephen, it's the longest time I've been away from home, and it's just little things like that you don't take into consideration. I was away from home for 3 weeks. I've never done that before. It's those kind of opportunities that I missed when I was younger, in terms of making the worlds and going to competitions on your own, that I haven't experienced from. So I did find Doha particularly difficult, and it probably didn't suit me being so much out of my routine, and that's something that I definitely will learn from going forward into future major championships.
And that's Stephen Maguire you mentioned there, who's our director of coaching and was obviously out there with you as well. What, in the absence of Leon as the coach and the continuity, what kind of things was Stephen saying to you to try and provide that support?
Yeah, so Stephen was actually, he'll love this. Stephen was at the anniversary game. So Leon was away at World Juniors then, and Stephen was there when I ran my personal best. So he always says to me, you know, you can do it on your own. So that kind of filled me with confidence that, you know, I can run when I'm on my own. But it was just trying to kind of keep normality and do the things that I would normally do. Just, you know, try and keep me as calm as possible. But it was definitely nerve-wracking, and something that I will learn on for the future.
It sounds like there's a real element of the coach's role. You know, you've had, even within the past few years, a lot of highs and lows, and that the coach's role is consistency, steadiness, because inevitably you're going to be feeling elation when you run really well, disappointment when things have gone badly. Is that fair to say? Is that what Leon provided for you, as kind of a steadying influence?
Oh, definitely. I'm a big believer that the coach is the most important person in the athlete's team. And I remember at British Champs in 2018, it was the first British Champs that Leon was actually there for, because he normally is in Mannheim with the juniors. And just before I was going to go into the call room, he said to me, "Oh, you might not be in first place coming off the bend, just to prepare you for that." I'm thinking, what's he on about? And he was like, "So yeah, if you're not in first place, just stay calm and just relax, don't tighten up." And I was thinking, oh right, I've not even thought about that. And then when I got to the race, lo and behold, I think I was in 4th or 5th place coming off the bend, and I was miles behind. And then I remember panicking for a split second, this was all in the race, just thinking, oh my God, you've absolutely messed this up. And then Leon's words came back to me, and I was like, no, Leon told you this was going to happen. Stay calm, stay relaxed. And then I began to work my way through the field. And I did say to him after, if he'd not said that to me before, I don't think I would have won the race, because I know it seems so obvious when I'm running against girls with much quicker personal best over the 100 than me. It does seem obvious that they're going to be coming off the bench first, but kind of on race day, you don't really think about stuff like that. And him saying that to me kind of sealed the race, I think, because it just gave me that new perspective of, oh yeah, you're probably going to be behind here. So I think a coach just has so many different kind of responsibilities, and it's definitely sometimes overlooked at how much of an important part they do play, because they have to, you know, look after you when you're down and celebrate with you when you're elated. And I think that's one thing Leon's always done when it's not gone so well. He's never, you know, not gave me a training program or, you know, gave me any different treatment. It's always been the same. And he's always, you know, thought, right, okay, she's missed this amount of training through injury, like in 2019, what can we do to kind of get her in the best shape possible?
That's great. And what would you say now is it that motivates you? Is it podiums and winning, or is it the enjoyment of going to the track every day and training and seeing the people that you train with?
I think my motivation hasn't really changed over the years. It's always been the same, and it's always been to see what I can actually do and to kind of improve on what I've done. I think that as an athlete, there's no better feelings than kind of running personal bests or winning races. So every year, my aim has always been, oh, right, okay, I want to run a PB next year. So that has always been my motivation, to kind of just be the best version of myself. And I think that's really, really a useful way to do it, because then whatever level you compete at, it's always the same aim. So when I was, you know, 18 and running 24.9, I wanted to run 24 mid next year, and just setting myself goals like that. So it obviously is a bit different now that I am making teams and I've got like the Olympics and things like that to aim for. But generally the actual big aim is to just leave the sport running as fast as I possibly could have done, like every kind of draw as much blood from this stone as we can.
And you probably answered my next question, but I'll ask it in case there's anything else you want to add, which is what the main piece of advice would be that you'd give to young athletes. Is it exactly that? Just chase your own goals, keep setting goals, keep enjoying it, keep working towards the next goal?
Yeah, I think that's just so useful. Like athletes up and down the country, whatever level you're at, I was setting myself goals, like I said, just wanting to run a bit quicker, or once I'd run 24 low, I was like, right, I want to go to 23 something. And that is something that everyone can use, because you might then go on to get bigger goals, like making the Olympics, and then from there making the Olympic final and Olympic medals, and that might change over time. But if you always have that, you know, wanting to improve on what you've previously done, it just makes it easier to get to that goal in baby steps.
And likewise, is there anything particular that you would say to, especially to club coaches around the country that are working with athletes week in, week out? What would you say to them in terms of the best way to support their athletes?
I'd say probably to remember that every athlete is individual. So what works for one athlete might not work for the other. So I think as best you can, kind of probably individualising the training to the athlete. And also, if an athlete hasn't achieved something by a certain age or things like that, it's not the be all and end all, because everyone does progress at different ages. And I remember people that I could not get anywhere near when I was younger, they've kind of peaked at a different time to me, and I'm peaking a lot later. So everyone peaks at different times. And I guess it is quite rare, because I've come through at such an older age, but that can happen as long as athletes are motivated and work towards improving themselves.
Brilliant. Well, I think that probably wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about today. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been really interesting to kind of take this specific look through your career and the way that coaches have helped you. we'll look forward to following your career with interest once we're all allowed out again.
Brill. I know, I can't wait.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Beth.
Thank you. Take care.